Today on 9wax TV, it's all about the 991.2 Carrera and Carrera S and why it's a brilliant modern 911 package for pretty much brand new Cayman and Boxster money. Now I have to start this video by saying I absolutely love the 991.2 generation. It was a crucial time for Porsche, possibly the biggest step change in the evolution of the 911's lineage since the adoption of water cooling in 1998. Nearly 20 years later, 2015 in fact, Porsche realised the need to not only push performance capabilities of the 911 ever further, but also reduce emissions and improve efficiency. And it did that, controversially at the time, by ditching its atmospheric flat six engine, okay? It switched to turbochargers, twin turbochargers, one for each bank of the flat six engine. Now on paper, the 991.2 set out everything it needed to achieve. It was quicker and faster, it was more powerful, it was more efficient, up 12%, and it also reduced emissions over the 991.1 generation that it replaced. But crucially, the 991.2 also needed to look and sound and drive like that traditional 911 that we all know and love. And I think Porsche resoundingly succeeded with this car. It's been superseded by the 992.1 generation and the 992.2 generation that followed. It means this car now is very nearly 10 years old. It doesn't look it, does it? Again, another reason I love this car, I think it's the prettiest, one of the prettiest generations of 911, that right level of modernity while still staying true to the traditional aspects of that 911. We'll dive into the details on the car. What did it change, first of all, over the 991.1? New front and rear bumpers, again, just a bit more sleek in design. New headlights as standard, new rear lights as standard, which were 3D and under braking gave that 4-dot Porsche motif. A real win for the 991.2 are the door handles, lightweight, simple, seamlessly integrated into the overall design. Why the 992 didn't keep them, I do not know. They're better than the 992 handles. Inside, it's still got that wonderful 991 architecture. It's just a bit more refined, a bit more lavish than the 997 generation before it. The big improvement inside though, undoubtedly, is the infotainment system. You could get Apple CarPlay in the 911 for the first time, and that really ensures that this generation is the first which inside doesn't really get dated too easy, because so long as you can plug your smartphone in and use it, you'll always be able to use your contemporary phone and apps and software in that car. There was a significant change in design at the back of the car, particularly in terms of like the exhaust placing. That is now centrally located. That reworking of the exhaust system was part of an overall objective to save weight, and the reason is the engine in the 991.2 with its turbochargers and intercoolers and everything else that comes with it increased mass of the engine alone by 35 kilos over the naturally aspirated 991.1. Porsche therefore had to be innovative with its approach to this car to bring overall mass down against its predecessor, and it did that in a number of ways. Wider use of multi-materials on the body of the car, but also things like the exhaust. There was a lot of kilograms saved in a new and bespoke exhaust system deployed on this turbocharged Carrera. It means that overall weight of this car is 1,440 kilos for the C2S with manual, or as here with PDK, it's an extra 20 kilos, bringing in curb weight to 1,460 kilograms. That goes over the overall thesis of this car, which, as I said, I absolutely love this generation. I'm really excited to drive this car here at Harbour Cars today. It's also sweltering under the midday sun, so let's jump inside, get the aircon on, go for a drive. It is hot, but it is good to be behind a 991.2. Before I go anywhere, let's listen to the sound of this thing on startup from cold, because it's a lovely soundtrack with a 991.2. Ready? Really nice sonorous flat six bar. The reason why I wanted to pay attention to that was turbocharging traditionally in the 911 has always meant a quiet, muted soundtrack, but with these turbocharged Carreras, absolutely not the case. Anyway, better go and rescue that camera from outside now before we head on. So it's an exquisite car, this, from Harbour Cars. It's a real treat to be behind the wheel. And actually, on that note, I need to say, and this is not exclusive for me, this is for people visiting the showroom today. It's a note from Harbour Cars. It says the wheels and tyres on this car are loan items whilst the originals are being expertly refurbished this week. So the wheels you can see in this video, they're not actually part of this car. They're the same design, they're just a different colour. And they're just, being refurbed. And actually this car is then going to be prepped properly, so it's actually a good time for me to be driving it, because it means I'm not going to be undoing anybody's work. I was thinking about this en route to Harbour Cars today. I would say conservatively I've done 100,000 miles in 991 generation 911s. The 991 generation had just come to fruition when I started my career as a Porsche journalist back in 2012. That was with what would become known as the 991.1, naturally aspirated 991. And then we rolled into this, the 991.2 generation. So I have a pretty good experience at the wheel of these cars, and I've done some special things with them in my life. My wedding car was a 991.2 Turbo S cab. I drove from the UK to the Arctic Circle in a 991.2 GTS Targa. In a 991.1 GTS Targa, I went to Le Mans for the weekend with my brother Joe, so I've got some amazing experiences. And that's why I'm very happy to show you all the merits of this car, because I firmly believe in this generation of 911. Amazing. Top speed in the C2S is 190 mile an hour. Ooh. And the 0 to 60 is achieved in under 4 seconds, 3.9 seconds with PDK as here. So an exceptionally capable, exceptionally quick car. Now yes, the bandwidth of that maximum torque is super wide compared to the naturally aspirated equivalents of years previous. The maximum 500 newton meters of torque is available between 1,700 RPM and 5 grand. So there's a real decent middle chunk of the tacho is where you've got that peak twist available. But here's where the genius comes in. Turbocharged engines, traditionally, and even within the 911 sphere with the 911 Turbo, capital T, they've always had less revs. It's just never been a revvy engine. You don't need it because you've got that whacking brake rush of thrust provided by the turbochargers. But here, where the turbochargers are a lot smaller, means the Carrera S revs out to 7.5 grand, and it is rewarding to do so. And then there's the noise, because as I mentioned on the startup, turbocharged or 911 turbos in the modern water-cooled era, they've always been quite quiet. It's the Achilles heel of the turbo, really. They lack a soundtrack. With the turbocharged Carrera, Porsche addressed that with a wonderful sport exhaust option as available here. It does give a really nice soundtrack that pops and crackles away. So, really, revvy engine, turbo lag is present but is minimal, and it has a wonderful, lively, raucous soundtrack. All the traits, really, at face value, of the naturally aspirated car before it. So mechanically, in terms of how this car is set up, there's nothing to not like. Add into the fact this takes everything that we loved about the 991.1 generation before, with some lovely tweaks, including the styling, including the Apple CarPlay. And it's not hard to see why the 991.2 generation is loved not just by myself, but actually by quite a lot of people. It's a very clever car. There's lots of layers to it. Made more readily available by this mode wheel, which again was something new for the 991 generation. So the mode wheel was taken from the 918 hypercar and is hanging off the centre of the steering wheel, and you've got basically easily accessible different driver maps. You've got normal mode, sport plus mode, and you've also got individual mode, which basically allows you to tailor your preferred driving setup, not only in terms of throttle response, but also if you want the Sport PASM chassis activated, Sport exhaust, etc. It has also got in the middle of that mode wheel this button here. If I stick it into fully auto, it'll do it. You press it and it gives you Sport response. It's said to give you optimum accelerative capability for 20 seconds. It basically preloads the drivetrain to give you that. I think it's really superfluous, to be honest. I think just as effective but more engaging is the kick down function in fully automatic mode, where you kick down, it'll drop a couple of gears, then you press on the accelerator and it gives you, you're in the middle of that torque band for nice smooth overtaking. I prefer that, but that's just me. Let's keep that in sport mode anyway for the pops and crackles. So great soundtrack, fun, engaging engine, nice and revvy, wonderful interior, really well put together. It feels comfortable, it feels lavish in here. The way it goes down the road is lovely. I don't feel like I'm being overawed by technology as I was with this car's successor. Staying with chassis as well, I want to mention the fact again that this is narrow body. The four-wheel drive cars, they are slightly wider for this generation, but for the rear-wheel drive cars, which is the Carrera and Carrera S, they are narrow bodied, 1,808mm across the rear. Does that make a real world difference? Yes, it does, particularly like, you know, I'm used to driving 992s these days. This car does feel like small and narrow, which on our small British roads, again something I bang on about on this channel all the time, that does make a material difference. I don't feel like I'm having to breathe in every time I pass oncoming traffic. There were two gearboxes available, 7-speed manual or 7-speed PDK. Majority of 991.2 generation cars are PDK. PDK was refined over the generation before it, still 7-speed as I said, but more intelligent. Paddles have been revised, not just aesthetically, but also ergonomically. There's less travel. Honestly, it's such a good 911. Fast enough, great soundtrack, not feeling overawed by tech, narrow body to slip down those narrow country lanes. There is nothing to not like about this car so far as I can see. All of this in a great package, which to all intents and purposes has already had a big bulk of its depreciation taken place. £82,000 when new in the UK in 2015, this car. Actually, I'm going to go left, that looks great fun. These days you can pick one up for between 60 and 70. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. The other real positive with the 991.2 is there were thousands of them made. Doesn't matter which country you live in, you'll be spoiled for choice. What that means is you can afford to be fussy, basically, and look for a car in your preferred spec, but also in the right condition. A lot of 991 generation 911s where they were so capable, they were used every day, so don't be afraid of one with big miles on, just ensure it's been serviced and looked after accordingly. So there we go then, that's the magic of the 991.2 generation Carrera and Carrera S. So much going for it, the reasons outlined in this video. I want to say thank you to Harbour Cars for allowing us a drive of this lovely example, a Carrera white exterior with the red interior, broken up really nicely by the carbon inserts. Now you can check it out on the Nineworks marketplace. It's for sale with a 1 year, that's 12-month bumper to bumper warranty, gives you a year's free motoring. Thanks very much for watching Nineworks TV, and we'll see you soon.